Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Course studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I've got to admit something. I have been breaking a rule in Magic pretty much every single time I play the game of Commander. Not intentionally, really, but now thinking about it, yeah, I've probably broken this rule more times than I can count, and you have too. I can guarantee that the vast majority of Magic players out there, at least the ones that I have seen, have done this exact same thing in Magic games. And you know what? Technically speaking, it is illegal. And being technically correct is the best version of correct, right? Futurama fans out there, I probably missaid that quote. But let's jump into it. So, from the tournament rules, updated on May 13, 2024, Alice Thunder Junction, Graveyard Order. Rule 3.15. I'm sure there's other numbers and stuff like that before it. Anyways, in formats involving only cards from Urza Saga and later, players may change the order of their graveyard at any time. A player may not change the order of an opponent's graveyard. So, again, in formats involving only cards from Urza Saga and later, so sure, like Modern, or is Pioneer in that? I don't know. Standard. But not Commander. Commander is an eternal format. You are not allowed to change the order of your graveyard. Now, that's such a weird rule. And again, it's like, why would that matter at all? And again, I am guilty of this too. There are definitely times like, oh, wait, I've got this card Flashback in my graveyard. Maybe I'll move it to the top so I remember that. Or I've got this other reason why I care about things in my graveyard. Or an opponent asked me to count the number of this in my graveyard. Why does it matter? What in the world? Like, why? It's public information. Why does that order have to stay the same? Here's the thing. There are certain cards that actually care about graveyard order, which is very, very strange. Now, most of these cards don't see very much, if any, play at all. They are very, very strange cards from way back in the day. I think I'm seeing, Tempest, Mirage type, things in there. That being said, there are certain ones that I've actually even played, and ones that I've actually put in decks recently, too. And here's the thing. The vast majority of these cards only care about, your graveyard for the most part. I mean, unless you, transferred ownership of the card to someone else or they copied it or whatnot, sure, okay? But most of these, your opponents don't have to worry about that. That being said, there are some that technically deal with opponents' things. And those would be Phyrexian Furnace, which is actually in one of my very first deck techs of all time that I ever made. It's not really for its actual purpose, but it's just an artifact that's cheap and it can draw you a card. So yeah, Joyra, the deck that I don't play anymore because it's Crazy Artifact Storm. That one actually has Phyrexian Furnace in it, an artifact for 1 mana. Tap, remove the bottom card of target player's graveyard from the game. Yeah, again, that matters. The order of the graveyard matters because the bottom card of that opponent's graveyard, there we go. That is something that is apparently sacred in Magic, and they cannot change. I was actually just using it to, pay 1, sacrifice it, exile a card from a graveyard, and draw a card. But still, it does matter what opponents' graveyards are at. Guiding Spirit does as well. Tap, if the top card of target's player's graveyard is a creature card, put that card on top of that player's library. That's an interesting one as well. That being said, again, this technicality technically matters. And here's the thing about technicalities. Rules lawyers, get your rules lawyers hats on out there. There's an entire deck you can build around this technicality and technically win because your opponents will technically break the rules. Let's jump into that. Now, to be completely upfront and honest about this, I am not actually building this deck myself, and I do not recommend that you do it either. Unless, of course, you've got a play group that you have played with for a while, and you just want to pull a little trick on them, essentially, and they're all going to hate you for it, but here we go. Corum the Undertaker is a very cool commander. It is one of the very few commanders that does, maybe have your opponents caring about certain things in graveyards. A 0/5 human warrior for 4 mana in Jund. It gets +X+0 X is the greatest power among creature cards in all graveyards. Whenever it attacks, each player mills a card. During each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a spell from among cards in graveyards that are put there from libraries this turn. Now, this commander's got a couple of things going on for us, which we care about when it comes to a deck built around our opponents breaking a rule in Magic and then pointing out that they broke that rule, and then we win the game because they broke that rule. Basically, again, rules lawyering Magic. Who doesn't love that? Yeah, I mean, it's good for like a fun joke on your friends, but do not do this at an LGS. You will get run out of town. Anyways, again, this commander does say, again, the greatest power among creature cards in all graveyards. And if you're like me and you're playing against a commander like this, rather than like, okay, like this person keeps asking like what the greatest power of things in graveyards is, I have to like sort through my graveyard every single time and like look at the individual cards. What I do as a Magic player is I take the creatures in my graveyard, I plop them on top, and I'd say, look, my biggest power creature is on top of my graveyard right here, so I don't have to keep referencing it for this player who's playing the commander. That being said, your opponents don't know that you're going to be utilizing this commander in that function in this way to encourage them, not actually saying like, hey, just reorganize your graveyard. Don't tell them that, all right? Let them do it themselves. We've got other cards in this deck to encourage graveyard organization and rule breaking. Yes, we've got ways to do that. This is a commander that does encourage that. We're not going to say do it, but it is a commander that does say, you know what? Hey, opponents, it'd be easier, make your life easier if you just did that. Also with this, there is, hey, during each of your turns, you can put a land and cast a spell from one cards in your graveyard. Cool. And it does mill cards in your graveyard too, which encourages graveyards being more full, harder to actually know what's in them, and again, players reorganizing them. But now let's move on to the golden pig of this deck, the number 1 card out of our 99. The entire deck is actually built around Phyrexian Furnace, not because, again, it is this game-breaking card, but it is a card that does institute the rule-breaking policy that you know what your opponents are going to be breaking. This is a 54-cent card. Wow, we really went really high on that budget for the golden pig of the deck. Every other card in this deck, though, is 50 cents or less out of 99. $17.34, 37 cents if I could speak properly, according to Moxfield. That doesn't include shipping or basics, but you already have those basics regardless. Phyrexian Furnace, again, I'll read it really quick. Artifact for 1, tap, remove the bottom card of target player's graveyard from the game. Pay 1, sacrifice, remove target card in any graveyard from the game and draw a card. Again, this card is kind of useless in a lot of decks. I mean, my Joyride deck did utilize it just because like it is in that a free artifact for the most part, because there's a lot of cost reduction in that you then can just pay 1 when you need to, get rid of something out of graveyard and draw a card. Tapping to remove the bottom card of a graveyard, like, sometimes can come in handy, right? But like, you don't know what the bottom card of graveyards is going to be. But again, for this deck, the purpose literally is, hey, graveyard order does matter, and because of that, well, you broke the rule when you changed around your graveyard, and how are we supposed to know what was on the bottom of your graveyard? So technically speaking, you lose because you broke a rule in Magic. And I'm not just sitting over here breaking rules. Look at my graveyard. It's perfectly the same. I have not touched it. I'm not moving the order of it at all. Look, I'm obeying the rules of Magic. You aren't. Not my fault. You lose. Now I'm going to leave this town because people are going to chase me out of town. But now let's go to tactic number 2 to talk about more ways that you can force players, not force them, encourage with your Magic cards, them to organize their graveyard and break the rules of Magic. So again, let's say your commander's not in play and your opponents aren't worrying about, what the greatest power creature in the graveyard is, or maybe they've got it memorized. Let's just actually throw another little effect out there, Death's Approach. An enchantment aura that costs a single black mana, enchant creature, -X for X the number of creature cards in its controller's graveyard. So again, let's say that one player over there just hasn't touched their graveyard yet, hasn't organized it, and you know what? We want to make it so that they've got to keep track of the number of creature cards in their graveyard. And what's an easy way to do that? Well, reorganizing their graveyard. So before that they know that we're doing this entire deck, literally just to get the furnace out, just to burninate their hopes and dreams with a rule break, yeah, we're going to attach this to one of their creatures. Slag Fiend, another great one. Construct for a single red mana. Power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifact cards in all graveyards. These are quite fun, where it's like, hey, everyone, you know what? Okay, you already talked about creatures. Maybe you've got that memorized. Maybe we don't need to reorganize that, right? But now I also need to know, on top of the greatest power creatures you have, Also in your graveyard, how many artifacts do you have? So yeah, some organization might be needed. Elephant Resurgence, another way to encourage graveyard manipulation. A sorcery for 2 mana in green. Each player puts a green elephant creature token to play. Those creatures have this creature's power types for each equal to number of creature cards in its controller's graveyard. This again is dependent on every single player. Every single player gets one of these elephants, and congratulations! It's based off of your individual creatures, so have fun counting that again and again and again. You're probably going to manipulate your graveyard and actually move those to the top. Exoskeleton Armor, +X for X number of creature cards in all graveyards. This can make our commander huge, number one, which can be quite fun. We're not going to win in that manner, though, obviously. We want to win by a rule break. That being said, again, making every opponent not just know their greatest power, but also how many creatures. The more layers of graveyard statistics that we add to, the harder it is for your opponents not to reorganize their graveyard. Mirror and Safe House. As long as it's on the battlefield, it's all activated abilities of all land cards in all graveyards. Cool again. Now you also keep track of your lands in your graveyards. I'm going to be asking you questions about artifacts, creatures, number of creatures, power creatures, lands. Get ready for a lot of graveyard manipulation, people. Nighthawk Scavenger, another ripple on this as well. Flying Death Touch Lifelink. Power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. Excuse me, opponents. Hey, how many instants do you have? Or does anyone have an instant? Does anyone have a sorcery? Does anyone have a creature? Does anyone have this, that, all the things, okay? Like, now all of a sudden you are moving things around your graveyard. You're trying to say, like, okay, I've got one of these, I got one of those. The more your opponents touch their graveyards, the more likely they are to break the rule. Night Howler, again, +X for X the number of creature cards in all graveyards. Keep that in mind. Polygorph, again, the number of card types. We've got a lot of these repeat effects. Also, Trample Myriad. This can be a great card to hit hard. Terravore, power types equal to the number of land cards in all graveyards. Again, keeping track of the number of lands now, not just what they do. Bone Horde, +X for X the number of creature cards in all graveyards as well. Yet another way we can equip this onto our commander, make it hit hard, but we don't care about that. Corpse Augur, a great way to draw a lot of cards and lose some life too. Dies, draw X cards, or X, and you lose X life, or X the number of creature cards in target player's graveyard. Again, if you've noticed, 2 of the players have actually manipulated their graveyard. They've changed the order. Another player over there has not done it yet. Well, you know what? Maybe do some targeted effects where you're like, hey, you, this just died. How many creature cards do you have in your graveyard? Okay, you're touching your graveyard. Great. Okay, you move. You move things. Okay, great. Phyrexian Furnace. Next up, Invigorating Falls. You gain life equal to a number of creature cards in all graveyards. Again, start counting. Lurgoyf. Number of creature cards in all graveyards. +1. Cool. Mortivore, again, equal to number of creature cards in all graveyards. The Long Reach of Night. Each one sacrifice a creature unless they discard a card. Cool. Getting more things into the graveyard. That's lovely. Does that twice, then it exiles and flips over. Menace, whenever it attacks, gets +X with 0 and top to her X the number of creature cards in defending player's graveyard. So again, hey you, I'm swinging at you, start counting. Undergrowth Scavenger enters the battle for the number of counters on equal number of creature cards in all graveyards. Again, keep counting. Alter the Goyf. Whenever a creature control attacks alone, it gets +X until up turn X the number of card types among cards in all graveyards. Again, count those card types for me again. Every single time I attack, I need to know. Drakestown Forgotten finally enters the battlefield. X counters on X the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So again, being able to say, you know what, I need this information, I need that information, I need different kinds of information every single time I do something, your opponents are going to make the mistake and move things around in their graveyard. Or how about just even giving the graveyard attention with certain cards? Next tactic. Grave Consequences. Yeah, there's some consequences to your actions, opponents, when you actually break the rules of Magic. An instant for 2 mana in black. Each player may remove any number of cards in their graveyard from the game, exile them. Then each player loses 1 life for each card in their graveyard, draw a card. Here's the thing. This is a bit of a risky one when it comes to you utilizing this, because your opponents could just get rid of their graveyards, and that's not good. But if you know that your opponent's like, there's certain things in their graveyards that they're going to want to keep, this is a great way to be like, okay, yeah, they're going to be moving things around when they utilize this card, right? Because they're going to be like, I want to keep this, but not that. They're going to be moving things around. Good luck to them literally looking through their graveyard and saying like, okay, like I've got 10 cards in my graveyard. I want to keep these 5 and I'll just lose 5 life. Okay, whatever it is. Cool. Then they are going to have to keep those 5 in the actual order that they're already in. Good luck with that. Sewer Nemesis. Enters the battlefield, choose a player. Very unlucky player. Power notes equal number of cards in that player's graveyard. Whenever the chosen player casts a spell, that player puts the top card of the library into their graveyard. So again, opponent, I need you to keep track of the number of cards in your graveyard now. Thank you. Also, I'm going to be milling you more and more and more with this. Keening Stone, yet another way to manipulate a graveyard in a way. Artifact for 6, pay 5, tap. Target player mills X cards or X the number of cards in that player's graveyard. Keep making that graveyard larger and larger and larger, making it more and more and more difficult for that opponent to keep track of what in the world is in their graveyard with all these different statistics that we need. Or mill yourself, because again, if we actually mill our Golden Pig into our graveyard, we can play it, or whatever else. Again, one thing a turn. Eldritch Pack, another great way to utilize graveyard. Sorcery for 7 mana. Target player draws X cards and loses X life or X the number of cards in their graveyard. Again, just getting someone to count their graveyard can be massive for us. Next up, tactic number 4. Like I mentioned, yeah, if we get something into our graveyard from our library, we can play it. And that includes the Furnace, which is just 1 mana. The 1 mana card that says, hey, I win the game because you all broke the rules and you shouldn't have done that. Violent Tumor, a 2/2 zombie warlock with Death Touch for 4 mana. Enters the battlefield, choose library for a card, put that card in your graveyard, then shuffle. A great tutor for that. Greybacker Lamia, exact same thing essentially. And also spells you cast from your graveyard cost 1 to cast. Quite nice. And Disciples of Gix, another great card for this deck as well. ETB, search library to 3 artifact cards, put your graveyard, then shuffle. Yeah, we only really care too much about just getting the 1, but sure, we got the other 2 as well. Why not? Moving on, tactic number 5, tutor time. Yeah, we also have some tutors that can help us out too. Reckless Handling, sorcery for 2 mana and red. Search life for an artifact, reveal, put your hand, shuffle, then discard a card at random. If an artifact, discard this way. 2 damage each opponent. Yeah, this is a little risky, but you know what? What's not to love about a little risk with this kind of a deck, right? We're already risking friendships with this type of a deck, so why not? Next up, Grim Servant enters the battlefield. Search life for a card with mana value equal less than your devotion to black. Reveal, open your hand, then shuffle. You lose 3 life. We already meet our devotion to black just with this. Again, our card costs 1 that we want to go get, so go get it. Coveted Prize, don't worry about the party thing. Search life for a card, put in your hand. Cool, it's in our hand. Awesome, play it. Fervent Mastery, again, another little risk that we can actually play into. Basically, search life for up to 3 cards, put in your hand, then shuffle, and discard 3 cards at random. So yeah, we might lose it. That's okay though if we do. Or we can just go get like 3 tutors, and maybe one of those tutors would work out then just regular tutors. So we're not wasting the actual card. Final parting, this can help out in 2 ways. Search life for 2 cards, 1 in your hand, the other in your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Again, just by putting it directly into our graveyard, we can just play it from there. Razcast Right, a tutor or a cycle, whatever we need. Behold and Beyond, discard your hand, search life for 3 cards with a card in your hand, then shuffle your library. Again, just go get that, and they'll be like, wait, why? Why'd you tutor for and just play a Phyrexian? Oh no. Moving on, tactic number 6, fill those yards. Again, our commander can help with this when it attacks, but we also have Eye Collector, which can also help when it attacks. Deals combat damage to a player. Each player mills 1. A 1/1 flyer can easily get through at least 1 opponent most of the time. Ghoul Caller's Bell doesn't have to get through. We can tap and each player mills 1 card. Shared Trauma, starting with you. Maybe we're the only one paying into this, but other players might have graveyard decks as well, and they're like, hey, you know what? I'll pay into that as well. Each player may pay any amount of mana. Each player mills X cards. The total amount of mana spent. Vicious Rumors, 1 damage each opponent. Each opponent discards a card, puts the top card library in the graveyard. You gain 1 life. Mill. So yeah, basically get 2 cards in their graveyard. Again, the more cards we get in their graveyard, the more things they have to manage. So we're just gonna keep doing this. Dread Summons, each player mills X cards, and we make some zombies based on the number of creature cards put in the graveyards. Cool. Next up, the Binding of the Titans. First one, each player mills 3. Next one, we can exile some cards, gain some if we want to. The third one is we can return a creature or land from our graveyard back to our hand. Quite nice. Coma's Faithful. When it dies, each player mills 3 cards. Unseal the Necropolis. Each player mills 3. Return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. We can do that if we need to. Next up, Mine Rack Harpy, a 3/2 flyer. At the beginning of combat your turn, each player mills 3. Path of the Schemer, each player mills 2. Then we get to reanimate a creature. What's not to love about that? Sir Conrad the Grim, we can also punish opponents with this. Make it seem like we're actually using, a real deck, where it's not just, hey, you broke a rule, now you lose. Whenever another creature dies, creature card with a grave from anywhere from the battlefield, or a creature card leaves the graveyard, 1 damage each opponent. Basically, if creatures go here, there, or anywhere with the graveyard, which they're going to be with this deck, we get to ping opponents, and we can also pay 1 in a black and each player mills a card. Again, a great way to dump mana into this and just say, keep milling, get more things in the graveyard. Okay, wait, what's your biggest power creature in the graveyard? Oh, how many creatures in the graveyard now? How many artifacts in the graveyard? What are your lands in your graveyard? How many lands are in your graveyard? Lots of questions. Hopefully you don't organize your graveyard. Moving on, tactic number 7, I can dig it. Yeah, we're going to dig down into our deck, get to what we need to encourage opponents to reorganize their graveyards and get to our golden pig. Dire Sight's a great way to do so. Surveil 2, draw 2, lose 2 life. Magus of the Wheel, a great way to fill graveyards as well. We pay 2, we tap, we sacrifice, we wheel. Everyone wheels. Discard your hand, draw 7. Painful Truce, pay 3 mana into this. That is different. Draw 3, lose 3 life. Read the Bones, scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. Siphon Mine, everyone else discards a card. Yay, more things in the graveyard. We draw 3, essentially. Ruin Grinder. When he dies, each player may mill, essentially. Not mill. Each player may wheel. There you go. Which is getting cards in the graveyard in a different way, or we can mountain cycle it away. Runehorn Hellkite. When this is in our graveyard, this is where we want it to be. Pay 6 mana, essentially. Exile out of our graveyard. Everyone wheels. Dragon Mage, a repeatable wheel effect. 5/5 flyer. When it hits a player, every single player wheels. Next up, tactic number 8. How are we going to get all this mana to do all these things? Well, we're going to ramp it up. First up, there's Wayfarer's Ball. We'll pay 2 tap, sacrifice, get a basic land into play, tap. Then we've got Rampant Growth, just your basic, ramp spell, essentially. Go get a basic land to play, tapped. Cool, for 2 mana. Secure Tribe Elder, exact same thing, but it's a creature that we sacrifice to do so. Edgebottom, basically exact same thing, but only if you've got 4 or fewer lands, or you can cycle away by sacrificing a land. Fertile Ground, another great turn 2 ramp spell, just enchant a land. It can tap for an extra mana of any color, essentially. Cultivate, go get 2 basics. 1 goes into play, tap. 1 goes in your hand. Harrow, sacrifice 1 land, get 2 into play, untap. Search for Tomorrow, a great turn 1 play, suspend 2 for a sale green mana, get a basic land to play, untap. Springwhelm Druid, basically a Harrow, or more so a Roiling Regrowth on a body. ETB, sacrifice 1 land, 2 basics, and a play, tapped. Find the Migration Path. You can cycle away if you need to, or yeah, casting it 2 basics and a play, tap. Basically Explosive Vegetation. And finally, tactic number 9, a great land, just in case we need it. Buried Ruin, taps for a colorless, pay 2 taps, sacrifice, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, if somehow our Phyrexian Furnace does not get utilized properly and it's in our graveyard and we didn't play with our commander play or whatever we did, we can get it back into our hands so that we can play it and then say, hey opponents, I choose you to lose, because I am going to point out that your graveyard should be in its original order. You should not have moved it, and all of a sudden you lose because of a technicality, and being technically right is the best version of right. Now, again, I urge you caution with this, okay? I am just pointing out something that is mostly interesting and mostly something that many players out there don't care about, and mostly something that, you know what? It's rarely, if ever, going to come up in an actual game of Magic. I mean, those cards in that graveyard order only see so much play. Again, like that one was randomly in my Joyride deck just because it can be sacrificed to draw a card, essentially, kind of like an egg-ish. So this is something that, again, the majority of players out there are not thinking about, probably don't even know that this is a rule. And if it is, again, at your LGS, do not just do it to random people and be like, well, you lose. No, you're going to get kicked out of the LGS. Don't do that. This is something that if you decide to build this deck, which could be fun, do it with a group that you know, and one that you know would take this fun joke and laugh about it, essentially, right? Do not just do this to random players, because they're probably gonna be like, well, we don't care, so no. But yeah, do this to your friends because it's kind of funny. Again, a rule that everyone technically should know, but not many players do. And it's kind of weird that it is a rule that is actually a real rule in the most casual of formats out there. You cannot just casually move your graveyard around, which you probably should be able to do, because yeah, there's definitely times where you have cards out there, like many of the ones I brought up in this episode, where it's like you need to know the number of artifacts in your graveyard, the number of creatures in your graveyard, the greatest power creature in your graveyard, how many lands in your graveyard, all these different factors. And you know what? It's kind of annoying to keep track of that if you can't reorganize your graveyard. So there you go. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.